Global climate change is exacerbating food insecurity in the developing world. Population growth and the demand for food is dramatically outpacing agricultural yield. A 69% increase in global agricultural production will be required by 2050 to meet projected demands. This challenge is most acute in sub-Saharan Africa, where the population is expected to double by 2050. Consequences of climate change, including changes to rainfall and temperature, are expected to reduce productivity and make production more erratic. Zambia is particularly at risk, as resources are scarce, temperatures are surpassing thresholds for adequate crop growth, and agriculture constitutes 21% of the national economy. Nearly half of Zambians live in extreme poverty and are chronically malnourished. Food access is challenging for many. Maize is the major crop and staple food for Zambians, constituting over half of their calories. 2/3 of the 14.3 million Zambians are reliant on the agricultural sector for their livelihoods. Most live in rural areas where subsistence rain-fed agriculture is the dominant economic activity. The vast majority cultivate small plots, typically less than 5 hectares, using only basic inputs and technologies. To solve food insecurity in Zambia, we propose an intervention that promotes agroforestry among smallholder farms in the northern region. About 65% of this region is underutilized. Across these zones, despite considerable agricultural potential, Zambia's maize harvest fails to meet national market demand.
Agroforestry is the deliberate integration of woody perennial plants like trees and shrubs with crops on the same tract of land. This integration of crops and trees can create diversified and productive farming systems that yield both staple foods and firewood or other products from trees. There are a number of different agroforestry techniques. For instance, many sub-Saharan African countries practice alley cropping, where crop strips alternate with rows of closely spaced nitrogen-fixing tree species. Normally, the trees are pruned before planting the crop. The cut leafy material is spread over the crop area to provide nutrients for the crop. In addition to improving soil fertility through increased organic matter and biological nitrogen fixation, the trees serve as windbreaks and eliminate soil erosion. The northern region of Zambia is an ideal location for agroforestry because it receives the highest rainfall but has poorer soils. Agroforestry practices have potential positive implications for climate change mitigation as well. Agroforestry systems have 3 to 4 times more biomass than traditional treeless cropping systems, leading to increased carbon sequestration. Additionally, the expansion of agricultural production often conflicts with climate change mitigation efforts focused on reforestation and forest protection. However, agroforestry has the potential to enhance agricultural productivity and increase the food supply without clearing forests. There have been incremental government efforts in Zambia to encourage sustainable agriculture, including the subsidies provided through the Farmer Input Support Program, FISP, for fertilizer and improved maize seed. FISP seeks to improve household food security and incomes. However, households cultivating less land are significantly less likely to receive FISP assistance than households cultivating more land, so it fails to target those most in need of government aid. Despite FISP, decreased rainfall in recent years has caused a decline in maize output. 80% of the chronically hungry in Africa are smallholder farmers with low crop yield as the main factor leading to food insecurity. Many current farming practices lead to land degradation and loss of soil fertility, exacerbating the already low-level yield. Although fertilizer is commonly used to improve soil fertility and increase yields, it is utilized much less frequently in Zambia because of its cost and ineffectiveness in this region. Government funding for FISP would be better utilized to promote sustainable agroforestry among smallholder farms who rely on their maize crop for their nutritional and economic well-being.
Zambia's eastern neighbor, Malawi, has a long history of agroforestry research and development, dating back to the 1980s. From 2007 to 2011, the World Agroforestry Center implemented the Malawi Agroforestry Food Security Project through financial support from Irish Aid. The Malawi government, agricultural organizations, NGOs, and CBOs formed a strong public-private partnership to reach over 180,000 farming families in 11 districts. Participants saw increases in household food security and nutrition. This successful project can serve as a model for our proposed intervention in Zambia. In order for our proposed intervention to be successful, we need partnerships and support from the Zambian government, the National Farmers Union, other community-based organizations, and international donor groups. As seen in Malawi, a private-public partnership such as this is imperative. To increase community buy-in and program longevity, we will provide Zambian farming communities with tree seeds and seedlings, as well as information and training on how to care for them and effectively combine them with food crops. We understand that each plot of land is unique, so to ensure success and feasibility, farmers will be given their choice of agroforestry tree seeds and fruit tree seedlings. While there are clear benefits of agroforestry for both food security and climate change mitigation, there are a number of potential challenges and barriers to consider and address in our intervention.
The majority of northern Zambia is rural, posing several challenges for the implementation of our agroforestry intervention. The resources necessary to conduct our intervention include appropriate training for smallholder farmers by extension workers, tree seeds to be planted, and experts to monitor agroforestry effectiveness. To overcome these challenges and promote sustainability, our intervention would create community fertilizer tree nurseries to supply seeds and train individual farmers to educate their neighboring farmers on agroforestry techniques, as well as create and manage a tree seed market at the village level. Additionally, agroforestry is not an exact science. It is hard to predict exactly which systems will work in which environments. In addition, the short-term returns from growing trees are minimal, while the long-term returns are difficult to predict. Thankfully, many previous successes have been exhibited in African environments similar to northern Zambia. For example, a literature review on the effects of agroforestry from studies across Africa found yield improvements of 6 to 200%. Field trials have consistently shown that maize yields in a fertilizer tree agroforestry system reach 2 or more times what is produced from unfertilized land. Local policies can further inhibit agroforestry in Zambian communities. Rural farmers in countries like Zambia often have insecure land rights. With no guarantee that their investment will be protected, farmers are much less willing to put in the hard work needed to produce a successful agroforestry plot. In implementing our intervention, we would work closely with local and national Zambian governments to address land tenure policy. As with any intervention, funding has been a major constraint to widespread agroforestry. While government subsidies and foreign aid can greatly boost agroforestry adoption rates, if this support is inconsistent, farmers will abandon their agroforestry plots. Many African governments do not have sufficient resources to support agroforestry through regular subsidies. Thus, our intervention would follow a fundraising model similar to Malawi and try to gain both foreign aid and government support. Finally, although current conditions in northern Zambia are ideal for agroforestry, the short and long-term impacts of climate change on agroforestry practices, particularly in terms of future rainfall and droughts, remain somewhat unclear. Despite this uncertainty, with its significant improvements in sustainability and minimal climate impacts, agroforestry is a great improvement over the current status quo in agricultural practices.
An effective agroforestry intervention in northern Zambia has the potential to significantly improve the lives of over 1 million people populating the region. Considering the high rate of chronic malnutrition and severe land degradation, our intervention is urgently needed. Agroforestry not only improves soil fertility and crop yield, but it also mitigates greenhouse gas emissions. Our intervention will enable smallholder farmers to both improve their livelihoods and the sustainability of their food supply. It is clear that agroforestry is the most appropriate and sustainable strategy to ensure food security in sub-Saharan Africa, which is increasingly threatened by global climate change.